Hey, stop. The one they laughed at while secretly studying. The one they called harmless, because admitting the truth would have shattered their little illusion of control. Look at you now. You can feel it, can't you? That strange tension when you enter a room. That awkward silence after you speak. Those fake smiles stretched too tight across faces that suddenly don't know what to do with you anymore. Oh, fuck. They finally connected the dots, not all at once. No, people like them never wake up gracefully. It happens in fragments, a look, a pattern, a memory they can't explain, 100 tiny moments stacking together like bodies under the floorboards until one night their brain whispers, "Wait, this person was never normal." And now everyone's acting weird around you. Not because you changed overnight, that's the funny part. You were always this way. You were always dangerous, always observing, always adapting, always holding yourself back while they mistook restraint for weakness. That's the tragedy of human beings. They think monsters are loud. No, real monsters are quiet, polite, smiling, patient. Real monsters learn your favorite color before they destroy your reality. And you learn something most people die without understanding. Pain is camouflage. See, suffering did something to you that comfort could never do. It split you open, forced you to meet every version of yourself hiding in the dark. The crying child, the exhausted survivor, the neglected ghost, the angry animal scratching at the walls of your ribs. Most people spend their entire lives running from that creature. You fed it. That's why your energy feels different now. That's why people can't relax around you anymore. Because your eyes started saying things your mouth doesn't. You stopped needing approval, and that terrifies people more than violence ever could. Because a person who doesn't need validation becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. See, they built an entire psychological cage around the version of you they preferred. The smaller you, the apologetic you, the explain yourself you, the please don't misunderstand me version. But then something happened. You got tired. Not sleepy, tired. Soul tired. The kind of tired that kills fear. The kind of tired that makes you stare directly at betrayal and laugh instead of bleed. And the second fear died inside you. Something else was born. Now people feel it before you even speak. That strange pressure in the atmosphere around you. Like your silence is calculating 10 outcomes ahead of everyone else. Because it is. You became emotionally fluent in chaos. You know what betrayal sounds like before the sentence finishes. You recognize manipulation by breathing patterns. You can smell insecurity hiding behind confidence. You notice tiny shifts in tone like a wolf hearing bones crack under snow. And now they're uncomfortable because they realize you've been seeing everything the whole time. That's the moment the room changes. That's when people start saying weird things like, "You've changed. You act different. You seem colder." No, you just stopped pretending not to notice. There's a difference, and people hate that difference because it exposes them. See, your evolution became a mirror. That's why weak people suddenly avoid eye contact around you. That's why fake people over-explain themselves now. That's why manipulators start panicking the second you go quiet. Because silence from someone ordinary means nothing, but silence from someone who understands human nature. That feels like a loaded gun sitting on the table. You want to know the darkest part? They still can't fully figure you out. That's what's driving them insane. You smile like a saint, but your mind moves like a psychopath. You speak gently while carrying enough rage to burn cities. You help people, yet somehow they still sense danger underneath your kindness. Good. That contradiction is your weapon. Never become easy to read. Predictable people get controlled. Contradictory people become legends. That's why your pain was necessary. Not fair. Necessary. Because pain introduced you to your shadow. And once a person learns how to sit comfortably with their darkness, they stop being controllable. That's why they're acting weird around you now. Because they can't decide what you are anymore. Are you healing, or are you becoming lethal? Are you peaceful, or are you simply disciplined enough not to destroy everything? Are you emotionally intelligent or emotionally detached? They don't know. And uncertainty makes human beings paranoid. You became a psychological glitch in their system. The old version of you used to chase clarity. Now you understand, confusion is power. Let them wander. Let them stay awake, replaying conversations with you. Let them dissect your tone. Let them analyze your silence like detectives at a murder scene. Because while they're busy trying to understand you, you're evolving again. That's the part nobody warns you about. Evolution becomes addictive. Once you realize suffering can transform you into something sharper, you stop fearing pain. You start using it. Humiliation becomes fuel. Isolation becomes intelligence. Heartbreak becomes vision. Betrayal becomes pattern recognition. And suddenly the things that were supposed to destroy you start upgrading you instead. That's when people really panic. Because now they understand there's no way to stop you anymore. Every attack just mutates you further. Every loss deepens your perception. Every disappointment removes another illusion. You become harder to manipulate with every scar. That's why your energy feels almost inhuman now. You're not reacting emotionally the way you used to. You're observing, watching, calculating. And people can feel that shift. Humans are animals. They sense danger instinctively. That's why the room goes strange when you walk in now. Not because you're evil, because you're aware. Awareness is terrifying. Most people survive by living unconsciously. Automatic thoughts, automatic behavior, automatic lies. But you started seeing the machinery underneath reality. You noticed how people shapeshift depending on status, how loyalty evaporates under pressure, how kindness is often transactional, how smiles can hide resentment sharp enough to kill. And once you see it, you can never unsee it again. That realization changed your face, not physically, energetically. There's something behind your eyes now that wasn't there before. A stillness, a storm pretending to be calm. That's why strangers stare longer, why enemies monitor you secretly, why people who underestimated you suddenly speak carefully around you. They feel the duality, the angel and demon sharing the same skin. And that's your greatest advantage. Because people only know how to defend themselves against obvious threats, not controlled chaos, not someone who mastered both empathy and destruction. You understand mercy, which means your wrath actually means something. You understand love, which means your absence becomes devastating. You understand pain, which means intimidation no longer works on you. That combination creates something rare, someone impossible to psychologically imprison. And deep down, they know it. That's why they're watching you now. That's why they're whispering about you. That's why your name enters conversations you were never supposed to be part of. Because human beings become obsessed with what they can't predict. And you stopped behaving like a normal person the second you turned suffering into self-awareness. Now your presence alone disrupts environments. Not because you're trying to dominate, but because authenticity has become rare enough to feel dangerous. Most people are performing identities. You survived yours collapsing. That creates a different kind of human, a dangerous one. Not dangerous because you hurt people. Dangerous because you no longer fear becoming misunderstood. That freedom changes everything. See, the moment you stop needing to be perceived correctly, you become untouchable. And people can sense that. They can feel that your self-worth no longer sits in their hands. That's why they act weird now. Because the control disappeared. The guilt tactics stopped working. The manipulation stopped landing. The emotional hooks stopped reaching your nervous system. You evolved beyond psychological dependency. And people lose their minds when they realize they can't emotionally control you anymore. Especially the ones who benefited from your insecurity. Those people are terrified now. Because the version of you they built strategies around. Dead. Buried. Gone. Now there's only this newer thing standing in front of them. Calm. Smiling. Observing. Unreadable. A person who learned how to turn darkness into vision. A person who discovered that the line between saint and psychopath is often just self-control. A person who realized being feared is not about aggression. It's about certainty. And you finally became certain. Certain about your value. Certain about your instincts. Certain about the energy people carry before they even open their mouths. That certainty radiates off you now. Coldly, silently, like static electricity before lightning strikes. So let them stare. Let them act weird. Let them feel nervous trying to decode you. Because they're finally seeing what was always there beneath the surface. Not a victim, not a joke, not someone waiting for permission to exist, but a beautifully unstable force of evolution wrapped in human skin. And the scariest part, you're still becoming. And that's what keeps them awake at night. Not who you are now, who you might become next. See, people can tolerate pain. They can tolerate failure. They can even tolerate hatred. But uncertainty eats human beings alive from the inside. And you became uncertainty with a pulse. That's why they monitor your mood now. Why they analyze your captions. Why they replay your words hours later, trying to decode hidden meanings that may not even exist. Because somewhere deep in their nervous system, they felt it. That moment your energy crossed the line and never came back. You know the exact moment I'm talking about. That silent, internal snap. Not dramatic, not cinematic, quiet. The kind of shift nobody notices until the consequences start leaking into reality. That was the night you stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this turning me into?" Different question. Dangerous question, because victims search for rescue. But evolving people search for transformation, and transformation is horrifying to watch up close, especially when it happens in silence. That's why your growth unsettles people more than loud success ever could. You didn't become stronger publicly, you became stronger privately. Behind closed doors, in isolation, inside mental wars nobody even knew you were fighting. You learned how to survive your own mind. Do you understand how rare that is? Most people collapse under themselves. They distract, they numb, they escape. But you sat in the dark long enough to hear your demons introduce themselves one by one. You met the violent part of yourself, the exhausted part, the revenge-driven part, the emotionally detached part, the terrifyingly calm part that could walk away from anything without blinking. And instead of denying those versions, you integrated them. That's power, not fake positivity, not pretending to be pure. Purity is fragile. Integrated darkness that survives nuclear winters See, people trust harmlessness because harmless people are predictable. But you're not harmless anymore. And no, that doesn't mean evil. That's the paradox weak minds can't understand. A wolf is not evil for having teeth. You simply discovered yours. That changes your posture, your tone, your timing, your silence. Even your patience feels different now. Before, your patience came from fear of conflict. Now your patience comes from knowing you could destroy the situation if you wanted to. That's a completely different energy. And people feel that distinction instinctively. That's why conversations around you have changed. People hesitate more, reveal less. Watch your reactions carefully, because subconsciously, they know they are no longer dealing with the old version of you. The emotionally available version, the easily manipulated version, the benefit of the doubt version. That person died slowly, not from betrayal alone, from realization. See, betrayal hurts, but realization rearranges your DNA. Realization is when the illusion finally collapses, when you suddenly understand, oh, they knew exactly what they were doing. That realization hardens something inside a person permanently. Not your heart, your perception. After that, you stop seeing words, you start seeing motives, you stop hearing promises, you start hearing insecurity hidden underneath them. You stop reacting to behavior, you react to intention. That level of awareness isolates people. Because once you can read human nature too clearly, small talk starts feeling like psychological torture. You notice everything. The fake laugh that came half a second too late. The envy disguised as jokes. The passive aggression hidden inside compliments. The nervousness in people who secretly compete with you. And the more you notice, the quieter you become. Not because you have nothing to say, because you realize most people reveal themselves if you simply let them keep talking. That's another thing pain taught you. Silence is surveillance. That's why your presence feels heavier now. You're not trying to impress anyone anymore. You're studying, observing emotional patterns like a scientist dissecting monsters under fluorescent light. And here's the terrifying part. You stopped being shocked by human behavior. Nothing surprises you anymore. Not betrayal, not manipulation, not abandonment, not jealousy. Because once you understand that most people operate from fear and insecurity, their behavior becomes predictable. Ironically, your unpredictability comes from your awareness of everyone else's predictability. That's real power, not money, not status, not attention. Psychological freedom, the ability to remain emotionally centered while everyone else spirals around you. That's why your enemies are confused now. They expected emotional reactions, explosions, desperation, begging. But instead, you became still. And stillness terrifies chaotic people. Because calmness during pressure signals one thing: control. You became dangerous the moment your emotions stopped controlling your decisions. Now your anger doesn't explode recklessly. It concentrates, sharpens, transforms into precision. That's why people misread you now. Some think you're healing, others think you're becoming darker. Truth? Both. That's the secret nobody talks about. Real healing contains darkness. Because true healing isn't becoming softer, it's becoming whole. And becoming whole means accepting the parts of yourself polite society told you to bury. Your aggression, your intensity, your ambition, your refusal to tolerate disrespect anymore. See, they loved you when your light was easy to consume. But the second your darkness developed discipline, now they're scared. Because disciplined darkness is unstoppable. An angry fool destroys himself. But a calm monster? that changes entire realities. That's why your energy feels almost supernatural now. Not because you're special, because suffering forced you into psychological evolution most people avoid forever. Pain accelerated your awareness. While everyone else chased comfort, you accidentally discovered depth. And depth changes people permanently. Once you've seen the abyss inside yourself, human games stop impressing you. You stop chasing validation because you realize most validation comes from people equally lost. You stop over-explaining because misunderstanding no longer threatens your identity. You stop begging for loyalty because solitude taught you self-respect. That transformation creates a terrifying kind of confidence, not loud confidence, silent certainty, the kind that doesn't need witnesses, and that is what people are reacting to now. Not your looks, not your words, your certainty. Human beings are unconsciously hypnotized by certainty. That's why insecure people either obsess over you or hate you, sometimes both at once, because your presence reminds them of everything they abandoned inside themselves. The courage, the authenticity, the intensity. You became living proof that pain can either destroy a person or forge them into something psychologically untouchable. And deep down, they know which one happened to you. That realization creates tension around you, because people can sense when someone has stopped fearing loneliness. That's the final stage. Once a person becomes comfortable alone, society loses its leash on them. Threats stop working, rejection loses power, isolation becomes peace instead of punishment. That's why your aura changed so violently. You no longer negotiate your existence with people. You simply exist, fully, dangerously, honestly. And honesty is terrifying in a world built on performance. That's why they stare at you differently now. You're becoming impossible to categorize. Too empathetic to be a villain, too dangerous to be a saint, too controlled to be reckless, too intense to be harmless. Perfect. Stay there. Confuse them. Because the moment people think they fully understand you, they start building cages around your identity. Never give them that luxury. Remain layered, contradictory, human. Smile while surviving chaos. Speak softly while carrying storms. Show mercy without becoming weak. Show darkness without losing your soul. That balance makes you unforgettable. And the craziest part? You still underestimate yourself sometimes, even now. Even after all this evolution, there are still moments you look in the mirror and see the old version of you hiding underneath. The insecure one, the exhausted one, the abandoned one. Good. Don't erase that version completely. That pain is sacred. It reminds you where your power was born. Without suffering, you would have stayed asleep. Without betrayal, your intuition would remain underdeveloped. Without isolation, you never would have met yourself deeply enough to transform. That's the cosmic joke. The worst things that happened to you became the architects of your evolution. So now when people act weird around you, smile. Because they're finally seeing the truth you buried for years beneath politeness and restraint. They're realizing you survived things that should have psychologically destroyed you, and instead of collapsing, you adapted. And there is nothing more frightening than a human being who learned how to turn suffering into power without losing their mind. Or maybe you did lose your mind. Maybe that's exactly why you're free now.